Welcome back. I want to provide an update regarding foreclosures and delinquency rates on a national level, and also how this compares for each of the states and also each of the metros as well. I have two reports to share regarding that, but also going to share an update regarding how home sellers in San Francisco are 4 times more likely to sell at a loss right now compared to the national averages. I'll share that report with you guys as well, and how that compares to other cities in the US here. So let's first talk about Corelogic's latest loan performance insights report. This looks at mortgage performance for the month of June. This report here, even though it was for June, was just announced about a week ago. They look at on a national level, statewide, and also at the city level as well. So on a national level, the overall delinquency rate for mortgages for June was 2.6%. That's down by 0.3 percentage points from 1 year ago when the rate was 2.9%. And according to Coelogic's chief economist, she stated the following here. The national delinquency rate remained at historical lows this June. In addition, fewer states and metro areas in the US posted annual increases in their overall delinquency rates compared to May. So we're saying here that the rate or the delinquency rate compared to 1 year ago is actually improving this June. And when I say improving, I mean that the rate, of course, is decreasing on a year-over-year basis. So here's some select states regarding the overall rate here. Again, on a national level, we're at 2.6%. So these states here have higher rates than the averages, of course. Mississippi is basically double the rate at 5% right now. Louisiana, about 4.9. New York at 3.8. West Virginia, 3.7. And then Alabama and Oklahoma around 3.5 to 3.6%. Important to note, though, even though these rates are fairly higher compared to the national averages, they're still all down compared to 1 year ago. Corelogic also looked at the year-over-year change in the overall mortgage delinquency rate compared to 1 year ago. So it says here in June 2023, no state posted a year-over-year increase in their rate, with 3 states were unchanged. So those 3 states were Idaho, Utah, and Arizona, unchanged compared to 1 year ago. In contrast, the areas that are in red right here had the biggest decreases in overall delinquency rates compared to 12 months ago. And the vast majority of these areas or these states here are located in the South, the Midwest, and of course, the Northeast. They also reported the states that have the highest rates of serious delinquencies. This means that you're at least 90 days or more past due on your mortgage payment. So leading the nation was Louisiana with a rate of 1.9%. That's actually tied with New York, also at 1.9%. After that was Mississippi, Oklahoma, Maryland, DC, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Hawaii, and Alabama, rounding out the top 10. Now, they also looked at how each of the metros in the US compared as well. It says there's only 3 metro areas where the serious delinquency rate actually increased. Again, this is at least 90 days or more past due. Only 3 metros saw an increase compared to 1 year ago. In contrast, there was only 8 metro areas in the entire US in which the rate actually remained the same. And also there was 373 areas in which the rate actually decreased compared to June 2022. This is a map of the US showing just that. So all areas except for green are areas in which the serious delinquency rate actually decreased compared to 12 months ago. The vast majority of the US here. In contrast, again, there's only 3 metros in which the rate actually increased on a year-over-year basis. That was the Boise, Idaho area, and also the southeast corner of Wyoming. Here's a look at the 10 largest metro areas in the US as well regarding their rates here. So some of the biggest increases were actually in New York, Newark, and New Jersey at 1.6%. Also Houston area at 1.3%, as well as Chicago. In contrast, the smallest percentages here were the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, I should say, at 0.4%, and also DC at around 0.9%. Also Boston, Massachusetts, that greater area is at 0.7%, roughly half that of Chicago. Okay, let's change gears slightly here and talk about a new report just announced today at the time of filming this video here regarding foreclosure rates for the month of August. I'm jumping ahead from June to August because this is a brand new report just announced today here. It says here for August, there was 33,952 U.S. properties with foreclosure filings. That is a default notice, scheduled auctions for sale, and also bank repossessions, up 7% from a month ago, but still down by 2% from 12 months ago. Nationwide, 1 in every 4,113 housing units had a foreclosure filing for the month of August. So states with the highest foreclosure rates were Nevada. So Nevada had the highest rates of foreclosures in the US. There was 1 in every 2,224 housing units that had a foreclosure filing here. Based on my calculation, that represents only 0.04% of all housing units in Nevada had a foreclosure filing. In other words, very, very low. But after Nevada was Illinois, South Carolina, New Jersey, and Delaware. Data firm ATTOM also provided the foreclosure rates by the metro area. So and these were a population of at least 200,000. The highest rates for the month of August was actually in Columbia, South Carolina. 1 in every 1,471 housing units had a foreclosure filing. After that was Fayette, North Carolina, Peoria, Illinois, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Jacksonville, not Florida, Jacksonville, North Carolina. In regards to the metro areas with a population of at least 1 million people, Cleveland, Ohio led the nation. 1 in every 1,896 housing units had a foreclosure filing. That represented only about 0.05% of all housing units in Cleveland. After that was Riverside, California, Jacksonville, Florida, and also Chicago, Illinois. Lenders also started the foreclosure process on about 23,000 U.S. properties for the month of August, up 9% from last month, but still down by 4% from 1 year ago. Also, the metros with a population greater than 1 million that saw the greatest monthly increases was Austin, Texas. Look at that, up by 79% compared to August of 2022. After that was Nashville, Tennessee, up by 77%. Raleigh, North Carolina, up by 73%. Riverside, California saw a gain of 68%. And Miami, Florida increased by 63%. One thing I do want to note is that the number of foreclosures 1 year ago was very, very small because we had was impacted by the foreclosure moratorium that we had in place for about 2 or 3 years. So because foreclosures have been on the rise, and because these percentages are so high, that's really because the numbers 1 year ago were at very low levels. So therefore, we're seeing a big increase in the percentages compared to 1 year ago. Hope that makes sense. Also, lenders repossessed 3,354 U.S. properties through completed foreclosures, or REOs, or real estate owned properties, this August, up 1% from last month, but still down by 15% from a year ago. All right, let's change gears slightly here and talk about this report from Redfin just announced last week. This really caught my attention. I haven't made a video regarding this, but in San Francisco, home sellers are 4 times more likely to get a loss or have a loss compared to the average US home seller. So for example, roughly 1 in every 8 houses, or about 12.3% of all houses that sold in San Francisco during the 3 months ended July 31st this year, was purchased for less than what the seller bought it for. In other words, the home seller took a loss 12.3% of the time. That's the highest share in the nation, and also it's quadruple the national average of 3%. So on national average, 3% of all home sellers are selling at a loss for the 3 weeks or 3 months ended July 31st, compared to 12% in San Francisco. After San Francisco came Detroit at 6.9%, Chicago at 6.5%, and then New York and Cleveland at around 5.9%. Additionally, in San Francisco, the typical homeowner who took a loss sold their house for $100,000 less than they purchased the property for. They also provided a really good chart going back to the year 2000 that showed the share of houses that sold for less than what the seller paid for. So in other words, they're selling their house at a loss on a national level at 3% at the time, but in San Francisco, it was at 12.3%. This is pretty interesting because at 3%, look at 2008 through 2012. Back then, let's just say the peak back in 2009, for example, on a national average, 65% of all people sold their house for less than what they paid for. So they took a loss 65% of the time compared to only 3% right now. What caught my attention as well is that the national average during the Great Recession was much higher compared to San Francisco. The peak in San Francisco was around 2011 at around 55% compared to 65% on national level. Now the tables have been overturned or reversed here because the percent of people selling their houses at a loss is 4 times the share on a national average. The areas in which home sellers were least likely to take a loss was San Diego, Boston, Providence, Rhode Island, Kansas City, Missouri, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. In each of these metros here, roughly 1% of houses that sold for less than what the seller originally paid for their house. They also talk about why home sellers are more likely to sell at a loss, and this is because San Francisco, or the Bay Area, was one of the first areas in which home prices decreased compared to the year prior to that. That was when I was making videos back in late 2022, and was sharing with you guys how the Bay Area was falling faster than any other market across the United States. And Redfin touched on this because they said by April 2023, San Francisco's median home sale price was down a record 13.3% compared to April of 2022, more than triple the national decrease of 4.2%. As of July this year, it was down by just 4.3% year over year compared to a national gain of 1.6%. I also want to share this with you guys as well because the vast majority of people selling their houses are still reaping gains. So for example, even though home prices have fallen from their peak last year, a majority of home sellers are still reaping significant financial gains. Nationwide, 97% of home sellers sold for a profit during the 3 months ended July 31st, with a typical home that sold going for 78.4%, or a gain of over $200,000 more than what the seller bought the house for. So for example, even in San Francisco, most homeowners are still making a lot of money. The typical home that sold in that area went for 70.5%, or a giant increase of $625,500 more than what the original paid for their house. They go on to say that today's home sellers are making money despite an ongoing housing downturn, in part due to the fact we have a low level in the number of houses for sale. And of course, that's actually supporting home values right now. So most people who bought when home prices peaked would lose money if they did sell right now, but they're not selling. We're not seeing people forced to sell their houses because overall the labor market is still fairly strong. Therefore, the people who are selling are not really forced to, they're just kind of deciding to. Many homeowners who are selling today have owned their houses for long enough to make a profit, regardless of month-to-month fluctuations in home values. Will that change? Of course, I'll definitely keep you posted with latest developments. And also, as normal, if you guys don't read my video descriptions, I always leave a link to all the articles I share in my videos because, of course, I'm not going to go over every single detail in all these reports here. And of course, if you want to read this yourself again, feel free to do so. Check out those links below. Also, I can't talk today. Anyways, thank you so much for watching today's video. I appreciate you. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.